Well, hello everybody. Welcome to Get to Know Metro. I'm Michelle Spaziano, your host. This is our very first episode, and we're going to be explaining the who, what, where, when, and why of Metro. Now, I got to tell you, I don't know much about Metro. I'm a TV show host, singer, and actress, but I'm going to be learning all about Metro along with you, the audience. So this should be quite interesting. Hopefully you'll find it educational as well as interesting, fun, and lighthearted. I'd like to show a different side of Metro while we learn all about these different divisions and how they can help you. So I'd like to introduce my very first guests, Jeff Gossage and Michelle Lane from the Procurement Division. Did I say that right?
That's close enough.
Over at Metro. So we're going to learn all about this division today. So how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Are you excited? You're my very first guest on Get to Know Metro.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, let's start off with our very first question. And before I do this, know that no question is a dumb question. What is procurement and what does the Procurement Division do?
All right. The Procurement Division really does acquisitions for the city. We purchase goods, services, and buildings, construction, anything like that. The division is made up of 3 different offices. There is the Business Assistance Office, which is what Michelle represents. Okay. And then there are 2 purchasing groups, one that tends to do more of the capital projects and one that does more of the operational purchases.
Okay. And Michelle, tell us about your department.
The Business Assistance Office within the Procurement Division is responsible for managing our activities with small businesses and with minority and women-owned businesses. So we work with those folks. We engage in outreach to ensure that they understand about the Metro procurement process, that they understand about upcoming opportunities, and then have a meaningful opportunity to participate.
So in order to do business with Metro, what would a vendor need to do? And before I ask that, does vendor mean a business, a small?
It could be an individual or
Okay.
it could be a business. Typically, most of our suppliers or vendors are businesses. You'd have to go into nashville.gov on the website and then begin to enter information that's requested under our application process. It's mainly just to be sure that we understand what commodities, what goods and services you would provide, and how you would like to be paid. Also, because most cases they do want to be paid, as well as some information about their banking structure and their ACH forms, which is what we use to make a payment.
Okay, so let me see if I'm getting this straight. So if you're a small business that has a service or something to sell that the city's interested in, okay, we would come to the website, which you could probably see at the bottom of the screen, and then we apply as a small business or an individual vendor, you said, and then we wait to see if we're accepted or our services are needed.
Well, basically what you would do is you would register to do business using our supplier management system. It's an Oracle-based system, and it's very user-friendly, we think, because it does provide you with a wizard. It steps you through each step, and what you will need to get registered is, of course, your tax ID number that you've received from the IRS. And you need to make sure that you have some of the basic information about what you do. You know that, but be prepared to enter that specific service description or product description. You get registered. It is, a basic registration, and then you wait. There is a waiting process because you have to wait and see when Metro is seeking to buy what you're selling. So you're going to get email notifications at the email address, and that is of paramount importance for business owners. Ensure that that email address is a good email address and that it is one that can be perhaps assigned to your company, maybe info at michellespaziato.com or something like that, so that it's not tied to an individual who may leave your company. Right. But once you put the email information in there, you're going to get notices, and then you can determine whether or not you want to respond to those solicitations. And Metro is going to be letting you know basically what we buy. What we're seeking to buy at that time that you've registered to provide.
And one of the questions that just came to mind listening to Michelle is, that's not on the list, is what benefit would it be to be a vendor for Metro?
Well, it's another sales avenue for them to have. It's just like doing business with another company, except the government requires a registration on it. And it wouldn't matter whether you are a small business or a large business. It is all businesses doing any work with the city.
Okay.
So,
Okay, so I'm a small business. Why would I need to submit an IRS report to be approved as a small business?
That's a good question. It's one that we get, and we want to make certain that small businesses understand the process and are comfortable with the process. The Procurement Standards Board, which is a governing board for purchasing, has determined and established a process that ensures that the incentive-based program that we have for small businesses is engaged in, if you will, by true small businesses. So if we offer an incentive in our purchasing process for small businesses to participate, we want to make sure that the folks who are getting in there, having a chance to participate and take advantage of that program are indeed small. So the way that we do that is using our standards, of industry type, numbers of employees, and sales volume. We require you to submit those tax returns, those tax documents, so that we can make sure that you are the small business that you say you are, so that true small businesses really are the ones who are able to participate and enjoy the program.
Is there a certain income level that you have to be under to be considered a small business?
It varies. It really depends upon the industry of work that you're in, but our lowest ceiling is for service, and it's $500,000 a year. You can't have more than $500,000 a year and 9 employees. However, if you're in the construction industry, for example, you would be looking at $2 million in sales and 30 employees. So you could potentially present yourself with $3.5 million in sales, but have only 22 employees. And under those standards, Metro would still consider you small.
Wow, that seems like a big company to me.
Now, one thing, a company does not have to be approved as a small business to do business with the city. They just have to be approved as a small business to receive the incentives that Michelle was talking about.
Now, I'm a registered vendor. What's next? I make it through all the paperwork, my small business is accepted. What's next? Will Metro agencies start sending me orders?
No, the first step is that they'll send you notifications when a solicitation is requested. A solicitation is a departmental request that we send out to the registered suppliers and to the general public. They can also see what we're requesting. And if those are of interest to them, they can register and make a proposal on that. Or if not, at least they can just see what solicitations are on the street. We then go through a competitive sealed process. And what that means is that we are competing it on the same criteria between all suppliers, and then the evaluation is made on who to make the award to. At that point, a contract might be entered into, or a purchase order may be written just for that one specific purchase.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is if I'm a small business, I get in with you guys, and then we find out what is needed through Metro, and it's almost like doing an estimate or giving somebody an estimate. Here's what my company will do this job for.
To some degree. It's a little more specific than that,
Okay.
but yes, that's the same thing.
And if you get awarded the contract, that means you get the job.
Then there will be, it depends on what type of contract it is. If it's a contract for a one-time purchase, yes, you would get that job.
Okay.
If it's a contract for a service, like let's say office supplies, you're not going to get all the office supplies until the purchase orders come through for each one of those purchases. And typically they're multi-year contracts.
Oh, wow. So there's quite a few benefits of being involved with Metro as a small vendor or an individual vendor. I'm doing good so far. I'm understanding all this. Oh, God. Actually, last night I was trying to get a little more familiar with Metro and what they do, and I happened to turn on Channel 3 and I saw Michelle conducting a meeting on the MWBE certification. Was that what the meeting was?
The meeting was specifically about the Procurement Non-Discrimination Program, which is a program introduced by the mayor about 4.5 years ago and passed by the council. And it does serve specifically to engage minority and woman-owned businesses in the Metro procurement process.
And that's what MWBE stands for. Say it again slower.
Minority, woman-owned business enterprise is the exact term.
Enterprise, okay. Well, how do I get one, and how does Metro approve those?
Okay. Minority and women-owned business enterprises who want to present themselves able to participate in our procurement non-discrimination program would have to be certified, and that's a requirement of the ordinance that created our program, is that the certification has to be in place. We don't actually do the certifications at Metro, but what we do is list for users the agencies whose certificates we will accept. So if you're certified as a woman-owned business through, say, the Women Business Enterprise National Council, or through the Governor's Office of Diversity Business Enterprise, or through the National Women Business Owners Corporation, we're not going to ask you to jump through some more hoops. We're not going to say, come on over and get this specific Metro certificate. We're going to accept that because we've looked at their processes and we know they fit the requirements in the law. And you present that to us. So long as the date is valid, it shows you as a woman-owned business, we will accept it and we will acknowledge your business as a woman-owned business in our management, our supplier management system. The same holds true for minority-owned businesses. If you're certified through the Governor's Office of Diversity Business, again, if you're certified through a National Minority Supplier Development Council affiliate, here locally, that's the Tennessee Minority Supplier Development Council. We're going to accept that. We're going to accept that certificate, and we're going to acknowledge your business as a minority-owned business in our supplier management system. What that does is whenever Metro departments or large businesses seeking to outreach to minority or women-owned businesses look at your profile in the system, they're going to see Michelle Spaziato, approved woman-owned business, or approved minority-owned business, however you've been approved or certified, and they're going to know that that status applies to you and that you're eligible for that outreach.
Wow, I like the ring of that. I might have to look into that. Okay, this might be a question for you. Why did Metro move from a manual solicitation process to the say that word for me?
Procurement.
Procurement solution. And what is the difference between the two?
Okay.
I have no idea what either one of those means. So.
Well, the manual system was a slow process. It was paper intensive. If we have to do any kind of recall, pulling any information out, it's very difficult to do. The other thing is that as we look down the road at the two programs that we've talked about, the small business program and the minority and woman-owned business program, the procurement non-discrimination program, we found that we had to find a way to pull the information together and make it available easily and quickly, and this was one of the ways to do that. The other one was to begin to get a hand on what was being purchased. If we have a contract and we're selling whatever, widgets for $5, and an invoice comes in for $6, we have no way of knowing if a department's paying the $6 or not unless it is within the system. This way we can ensure that the taxpayer dollars are being spent the way we originally contracted.
Metro is a consolidated government, but Metro, MTA, Metro Public Schools, and now the Convention Center Authority all have separate solicitation processes. Now, why is that?
Well, and we also have MDHA and the Sports Authority. In the organization of Metro, they did go through and set up authorities underneath those that have different boards to which they're accountable. And on each one of those, they have an authority to enter into purchases or contracts on their own. We're representing the general government, is usually the way it's referred to, which makes up probably the majority, maybe half of or to the majority of the purchases that take place. Okay. And it represents, I think, about 58 departments and agencies.
Can you maybe explain that a little different?
Sure.
The question was, why is there all separate solicitation processes? What do you mean by solicitation process, first of all? Because maybe I don't understand that.
The solicitation is basically, here is the need, here's what we're looking for, and based on that, we need an offer provided from the suppliers as to what they're offering. We have different types of procurements, different types of purchases that are set up. Some are looking at a commodity, and we're like this chair, and it would be the lowest dollar. We really don't care about who provides it because it's just the chair, and we've already told you what type of chair to provide. Other cases, we're talking about very complex, very convoluted types of purchases. And on those, there's lots of things to consider besides just price. Price is certainly a major portion of that, but we're really looking for the best value. And so to build a building, the least expensive way to build it may mean repairs and maintenance costs going down the road that are much higher than if we had spent a little bit more money to buy a better quality of building in the very beginning.
Now I got that. Okay, so that's nice because that means not necessarily the vendor that offers the lowest price is going to get the contract. Am I using the right terms? Contract?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Cost is a consideration, but it's not the major. It is, if anything, it'll be the total cost of the life of that product.
Okay. Well, I feel like I'm really getting this now. All right, let's see. Let's move on here. I've got another question here. Should Metro try and keep the taxpayer money at home to help boost our local economy?
You want to try that one? Or you go?
They both looked at each other.
Well, you know, I think that the important thing to remember is that Metro procures or buys for the purpose of delivering services to the taxpayers in some form or fashion. And at the end of the day, what we want to do is make sure that we're providing good stewardship of those taxpayer dollars and that we are procuring the best product or service at the best price. Jeff calls it, you know, the best value. And what that sometimes means is that, you know, we're buying from a lot of local suppliers or vendors. What that sometimes means also is that we're buying outside of the market. You know, our desire is to make sure that we're, you know, within the law, you know, we're buying based upon those procurement laws and regulations that govern how we do work, that we're being good stewards of the dollars that we're using to buy, and that we're delivering quality products and services to the citizens. And it happens in a variety of ways.
And in most cases, a local company has an advantage. Their shipping costs are easier, their maintenance costs are lower. And so when you begin to look at that, a local company should have a more competitive position.
Okay. What did you mean when you said going outside the market sometimes?
Well, what we kind of define and what we've seen by looking at our purchases is that we do have quite a few suppliers and vendors who are in the Nashville MSA, which we call it the Metropolitan Statistical Area. It's about, you know, depending on who you ask, a 10 to 14 county, you know, area. And we see a lot of our suppliers and vendors who are located in that area. So that's kind of what we define as the metro market. But we do see, you know, a number of suppliers and vendors who come from outside of that area, some from even out of state. But we see a very good number of those firms who are within that MSA, in that region, if you will.
So mainly it is done with the locals.
We have a lot of local purchasing.
You try and do business mostly with the locals.
And the procurement non-discrimination puts an emphasis on those companies located in the Nashville MSA. And so, and most small businesses are also coming from that. So I would say the majority of our purchases are from the Nashville MSA. We will get into some large dollar figures that are purchased outside of the area, but most of the times those are things like information technology, which are not produced in the Nashville area.
Right. Right. Well, that would be understandable. Oh, gosh, I'm learning a lot in this sitting. All about Metro. Holy moly. I feel smart all of a sudden. Okay. Do I need to be connected to elected officials in order to be awarded a contract, or are contract awards competitive?
They are competitive, and I think that's one of the things that has changed the most about the local government is it has become much more business-like, more professional. The ordinance that we have that shape the code, the procurement code, definitely points us to a process by which we are looking at all companies and looking at them competitively.
Okay. If they are competitive, why do the same firms win awards? Somebody told me that. That wasn't my question.
Often, I think what happens is that a company has already learned the process. They have mastered either the bidding process or the proposal process, and in doing so, they actually submit a better proposal, and that's why the award goes that way. Other times, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Companies have all assumed XYZ company is going to win every time. So they don't propose, they don't bid, and XYZ company wins again.
The proposal. Okay. This is not on the list, but is there any classes or educational training that these small vendors or individuals can take to help them learn how to do better bids? And
for the smaller minority, always, they can come to the Business Assistance Office. You want to talk?
Well, what we do is we offer, during the course of a year, we offer 4 courses, and those courses are designed really to aid them in being better vendors and suppliers in the Metro procurement process. One of those, and we partner very closely with one of the other two offices that Jeff mentioned earlier in procurement, is How to Do Business with Metro. And we see that How to Do Business with Metro class is often attended by small and large businesses alike, and really helps them understand how we procure, how we buy, the methods that we use to buy, and answer some of the questions that we're talking about here today. And we offer other courses about our procurement non-discrimination program, which you mentioned recently. We also provide information about our contract compliance process. So we want folks to be informed. We want them to understand how to do business with us successfully so that they can then begin to fine-tune and hone their processes to be more competitive.
Right. I think that would be essential if you're a new vendor with Metro to take those classes and learn everything you can about
Absolutely.
winning the bids or awards or contracts. What are they called?
Both of those.
Both of them? Okay.
The other thing that works out extremely well for suppliers is that in the private sector, if you're working with a company and you lose out on a bid, the best you can do is sit down with them and find out what they think, what they will tell you was the reason why you lost. With Metro, all of this is public record. So anyone can come in at any time and see what their proposal looked like versus what other proposals look like. They can see where their deficiencies are, where the other company excelled. And if you've never proposed, you don't have to have a proposal. You can come back and see what happened the last contract and see how that process helped. Now, that helps you in two ways. One, it helps you to do better on the Metro contracts, but it also gives you insight into your competitors, how they propose and how they offer things, not just in Metro, but outside of Metro. So you have a competitive advantage of knowing how your competitor actually proposes. So it's a great learning experience for anyone. We do ask for several days' notice so we can pull the files together for you, but we're always open.
I think that speaks also, if I may, to your earlier question about the same firms winning. What really experience, as Jeff mentioned, really is one of the best instructors in this process, being engaged in it and learning from it, but also looking at what your competitors have done on previous rounds or previous opportunities out there to buy what we're to sell to us what we're seeking to buy. I think is we can't emphasize enough how enormously helpful that is, because then it really kind of helps you to understand exactly what you need to do to compete with the winner the last time.
Right. And you wouldn't have that advantage if you weren't part of Metro.
That's correct.
If you weren't engaged in the process in some way. Mm-hmm.
So, if I'm a small company that's made it through, to be a vendor for Metro, I'm competing with outside companies as well. Do I have an advantage being a vendor for you, or no? Or can't you tell me that?
What I tell people about, say, our programs that we have, as with the small business program, it is an incentive-based program. So if you are an approved small business by Metro, there is going to be an incentive. The procurement regulations allow us to give you an incentive for your status as a small business. So we encourage folks, if you think you meet those guidelines, present the information so we can get you approved, and then when you look to respond to a solicitation, you've got that incentive. On the Minority Woman-Owned Business Program, our procurement non-discrimination program, it is an outreach-based program. It's not a race-based program. It does provide increased opportunities, is how we define it, to engage in that process, but it doesn't provide an incentive because legally we cannot do that with race and gender. But we do encourage you to get registered, get approved as both a small business and a minority or women-owned business if it is applicable, and that way you're able to participate. You certainly can't be awarded if you're not in the mix, if you're not registered, and if you're not presenting yourself, and the best opportunity for you presents itself, you won't be able to participate. So you want to make sure you get those things taken care of.
So it's definitely a benefit to be affiliated
Absolutely.
with Metro, or whatever way you want to look at it.
Now, every time she mentions small, she's also including service-disabled veterans.
Mm-hmm.
And so they both receive the incentive where the minority woman-owned companies receive outreach.
That's right. Okay. Well, that's good to know, too. God, I just feel so overwhelmed with Metro knowledge today. This is great. Then I'm going to have to ask you about my small business and see if I have.
Happy to sit down with you.
Yeah, that would, because I never even knew that, as a small business, I could, register with you guys, become certified, and maybe start winning some contracts or
Well, you actually have
proposals. Or
two advantages. Since all suppliers have to look at outreach to minority and woman-owned businesses. You'd be a woman-owned business, so they have to do the outreach coming to you. So you'd satisfy that portion of their exercise. They also are looking at the incentives from using a small business, and so there are two programs.
Right.
So they could do the outreach and get an incentive just by reaching to your company.
So to clarify that just a little bit, on the small business side, that program doesn't really look at the ownership of the company in terms of woman-owned or minority-owned status. It doesn't look at race or gender, just strictly looks at the size, of the business, whereas our procurement non-discrimination program doesn't really look at size. It just looks at whether or not you're minority or woman-owned. We encourage you, if both programs fit for you, if you're a small business based upon those regulations, then you should get approved because it does qualify you for the incentive. If you're a minority or woman-owned business, we encourage you to get certified because, as Jeff mentioned, it then qualifies you for the outreach to those businesses that is required by the law. So that program doesn't have an incentive, but you can bring an incentive later in the procurement process if you're also approved as a small business.
Wow, who knew that today's meeting would help me as a woman-owned business? I have a very small entertainment company, but we specialize in senior living entertainment. And we provide entertainment for all the assisted living, independent living, nursing homes, rehab centers. So if I came to you guys and registered, say that is an approved service, then I would be able to maybe get contracts through you oh wow, this is beautiful. Okay, we'll get back to our scheduled questions. If there is a discrepancy or question about an award, what recourse do firms have to change or alter the outcome? Why is that funny, Michelle? Why are you laughing?
That's a Jeff question.
That's a Jeff question. Okay.
That's a purchasing agent question.
All right.
There is a protest and appeals process. The protest allows for any company that is aggrieved, and you can define aggrieved if you'd like to, that's aggrieved, to be able to file a protest. In doing so, they can see what was produced by the winning bid as well as why they weren't selected. And if they feel they were unfairly treated, they can come back and do a protest. I will hear the protest and determine whether or not they are correct. We violated code, we violated the solicitation itself. There's something wrong with the procurement process, and that will happen from time to time. If that's the case, then we will make an adjustment, either award to the one that has protested, pull the solicitation completely, make the corrections and reissue, or some other kind of remedy. If my decision is not acceptable to that protesting firm, right, and they can back it up, it has been done because of legal reasons, breaking of the code, not following the solicitation. And when I say code, it's the procurement code. It's Title IV of the Metropolitan Code of Law. So if we have done that, if I've not exercised my authority correctly, it goes before an appeals board. The appeals board is appointed by the mayor, and they serve, I think, 3 years at a time before there's reconsideration for that. They hear the decision and determine whether or not I exercised my authority correctly or had overstepped that. And then again, there's some type of remedy that's put in place.
So you're the guy that makes the decision in the beginning,
yes,
correct? And if you decide, oh, this guy is right, we should have, or this woman is right, we should have given the business to them. Do you take it away from the original person you gave it to, or do you award them a different?
If the argument supports that, then yes, that'd be what would take place. More often, there is some correction that has to be made, and then we continue on with the process to make a determination on what is really competitive. Try to keep it as fair and equitable as we can.
So you kind of play judge a little bit, huh? How do you like that position?
I think that's why she was laughing.
Yeah, that would be a tough call. But it is so much simpler to negotiate a contract with a private firm, but government seems to have a lot of red tape. What causes the issue of all this red tape?
All right. Again, procurement is a very legal process. It is probably, I think, the oldest laws that the government has, the federal government has, relate to procurements. And it was to control how the tax dollars were being spent. Because of that, there's legislation that drives our procurements. Probably, I think, about 185 pages of procurement law is what we follow. all the ordinances, all the things that we're doing are put in place by the council, the Metro Council. And once those are in place, there is a procurement standards board that can further redefine what is there so that we have a very clear procedure to follow. So there's a lot of red tape. And we're trying to do more than just a company to maximize its profits. There are lots of things that a government is trying to do. Being a good steward of the dollars is an important part, but there are also other social and economic issues that we have to consider.
Okay. Wow. So you do admit that there is a lot of red tape that you're trying to get rid of, right?
There are more challenges, and we would love to streamline the process, but we can only streamline it up to that point where we're satisfying what the law dictates that we must do.
You have to go by the law. I understand. Okay. How can I learn about bidding opportunities in Nashville? Well, I think you kind of already covered that, Michelle, about the classes that you offer.
Another thing that I think citizens should be aware of as they contemplate thinking about how to potentially sell to Metro is that we have on our website what we call the Business Opportunities Bulletin. We nicknamed it Bob because Bob is just so much easier, but you can go out even if you've not received a notice via email. We talked about making sure your registration information is up to date, making sure that your email address is correct. Even if you didn't receive an email notice about something that Metro is seeking to buy, if you go out to that Bob page and you take a look at all of the listings that are out there, what Metro is seeking to procure, you may find something that was issued in a code or a descriptive service or a product description that you're not registered for.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you can't bid on it. That doesn't mean that you can't seek to, submit a bid or a quote or something on that. It just means that you need to go add that code to your profile, and that's all it is. But it gives you kind of a pool of those different products or services that we're looking to buy, and then you can determine, hey, I can do that, or you can say, not really able to provide that, but you can make a decision about whether or not you feel you can deliver that service or product, and then you can decide whether or not you want to bid on it. And if that's the case, if it's something that you were not invited, you didn't receive that notice, you just need to make sure you contact whoever the buyer is, and that information will be listed, and let them know that you're interested in it.
Now, cold calls are never easy for any sales group to do.
Oh, I know. I used to do cold calls for insurance to boot.
Well, the advantage we have here is that we do have the subcontracting process in place. And when you do look at those opportunities on Bob, you can see what major contracts are being put in place.
Okay.
But underneath that, there are subcontractors. So maybe you don't build a building, but you do something else, and maybe you supply food or plumbing or whatever. You know who the prime is going to be.
Right.
You can come to the pre-proposal meeting or pre-bid meeting, and you have an opportunity immediately to network with those people who are going to end up winning the contract. Maybe 4 or 5 there, maybe 15, but you'll know who the main players are.
The general contractor.
Right.
And you could be his subcontractor.
Absolutely. So the cold calls are eliminated. These people are needing these services underneath them. You have an opportunity to talk to them. And so you can see how, or what maybe the greatest probability is that you can make a sale to that company based on what the contract is for.
One other thing to note with that I should have mentioned, at least one of those agencies that you mentioned earlier, you talked about MTA and all of those, for the Music City Center, which is one of our huge capital project that's underway right now. Any solicitations that they post, even though they're a separate authority, we, as a courtesy to them, also put that on the website, and as a convenience and a service to suppliers and vendors, you can see what they're looking to buy as well.
Wow, this is really an amazing opportunity for business owners.
Absolutely.
Who knew? I didn't. How can I learn about, well, I already asked that. Scratch that. Low bids do not ensure the best purchase, as we already talked about. Why does Nashville use this approach? I think Jeff answered this, but if you want to just...
Well, we only do it for those things that are like commodities, where an item is predefined. We know exactly what the specifications are, and it's real easy just to look at what is the delivered price. But the majority of our purchases probably come from one of two other processes. It is either through a proposal process where we're looking at lots of criteria, and procurement does not make that decision. We actually have a panel made up of subject matter experts from the departments making the request or departments related to it, and they actually do the review of the proposals and score those so that we have a view from several different people. They make a recommendation to me as to who should be awarded that.
Right.
And I would say 99% of the time, that's exactly who wins it.
Who gets it.
In those other percentage of times, we're looking at it to see, were we clear in what we were soliciting? Because sometimes the evaluation committee is maybe out of sync with what was actually being purchased, and have kind of begun to apply processes or evaluations that really aren't in the solicitation. And that's one of the things I have to guard against. But very rarely do we buy just the lowest cost item. We're buying the best value.
So did you hear that? When you're bidding a job, it's not necessarily who has the lowest price, but the best value, and seems like they're gonna be very fair about
But
who
I'm
they
going to
choose.
always encourage a very competitive price.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you want to be competitive, but okay. Well, oh my God, I must say, I didn't know if I was going to actually understand this conversation today, but you guys did such a beautiful job explaining it in very easy, understandable terms, and hopefully the audience got the gist of what our show was about today. Thank you so much for being my first guest on Get to Know Metro. See you next Saturday at 7 p.m.